We do nuclear power school, which is about 6 months, and there's some time in between each of these. That one's mostly classroom training, learning about nuclear power, and then you go to a third school, which is called prototype, where they have a prototype of an actual plant from the ship or the boat, and you practice on it with qualified instructors, and they teach you how to do everything before you actually go out to your duty station.
So, yeah, you mentioned, like, you have the two different carriers, so I guess for the Nimitz, that's how you pronounce it?
The Nimitz.
All right. So, how long were you stationed there before you moved to John C. Stennis?
It was about 2 years on both.
2 years.
It was a little less than 2 years on the Nimitz and a little bit more on the Stennis.
Okay. So, what was that like? Because you're in the ocean essentially.
Yeah, so the way that aircraft carriers deploy, you have a home port. So for the Nimitz, it was in San Diego, and for the Stennis, it was in Bremerton, Washington. So when you're at home, you're there, and your family's there, and all that, this, that, the other. When we go on deployment, everybody gets on the boat, and we leave. And we deploy usually to, like, the Middle East, like the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf, and we pretty much do circles out there in the middle of the ocean, and we launch planes. And the planes go in and carry out missions, do all this, that, the other, and we just stay on the boat and take care of the boat. We run drills, we practice in case of emergencies and stuff like that, and the mechanics keep everything running. So we operate the propellers that move the boat, we operate the electricity, we make all the clean water, we make stuff hot, we make stuff cold, all that stuff.
So I'm going to assume, since you mentioned there's a kind of a home base for your for the carriers, how often were you on land?
Not very often. When I was on the Nimitz, it wasn't so bad. During my 2 years there, we only deployed once, and it was a shorter deployment because the Nimitz is the oldest carrier in the fleet, and it's always breaking. So we can never go anywhere, which was great because we were at home all the time. But then I went to the Stennis, and that's the one that picks up all the slack for the Nimitz. So I was deployed for almost my entire time on the Nimitz, for almost 2 years straight. We were home for a couple of months, and that was it. And when you're out to sea, you'll usually spend about a month at sea, and then you'll stop in a port for about 4 days. And it's at least a month between. So sometimes it's 2 months. Sometimes it's a little longer than that. But it's always going to be about a month.
If you've been on land for, for some time, I guess, did you have a favorite place that you ended up, the stations in particular?
Like for duties, like for home ports?
Yes.
San Diego. San Diego was amazing. I loved it there. It's beautiful. It's like 80 degrees and sunny every day of the year. I loved it. It's expensive to live there, but we got BAH, so it didn't matter.
Okay, so I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but like that particular, like being a mechanic, is that mostly a male-dominated thing?
Yep, it sure is. There were 60 people in my division, and including myself, there were 2 females.
So just 2 of you out of
just 2 of us. It was just us girls.
Did you think? Do you feel that hindered you in a way, or?
I don't know if it hindered me, but it definitely posed problems from time to time, because when you're deployed, every problem that you have, it gets magnified because you're stressed out, you're frustrated, you don't want to be there. So when we have problems between people in a division, those things get amplified. So when a female shows up to a division that's all guys, it's sometimes a problem. It's a good old boys club, it's man's world out there. So when I showed up, people talk. They're like, oh, you're just going to get pregnant so you can leave. You're just going to sleep with the LPO so that you can get what you want. And that was obviously a problem for me. I'm an Italian woman from New England. I don't tolerate that crap.
Right.
So I got into a few fights. But I was a really good mechanic, and I worked my ass off. And after some time of being there, eventually that all stopped.
Good.
Because I was not going to take it. I wouldn't tolerate it. And I proved that I was just as good, if not better, of a mechanic than any of those boys.
So I'm assuming, it might be much to assume, but did you and the other girl kind of have like this united front? Or?
Absolutely. She was a lot like me. She was actually from Connecticut also. It was super weird. But she and I got along really, really well, and like we were both similar personalities. You know, she didn't take their crap either. She was also a really good mechanic. We would hang out when we would stop in Liberty ports and stuff like that. We united against all these guys.
Are you guys still friends afterwards?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep.
so
She
nice.
still lives in Washington, so I only see her every once in a while, but yeah, we're still friends. That's
so
a
nice.
lifetime friendship right there.
I would imagine so. So what do you think was the hardest part of your Navy experience?
The workload as a reactor mechanic is really, really rough. Like, this is how I explain it to most people.
Mm-hmm.
When I first showed up to my boat, I was an E4. I'd been in the Navy for 2 years. I had 4 years left. And they offered me a star reenlistment, which is something they offer to everyone in the nuclear power program after 2 years. They immediately bump you up to E5, so there's a pay raise right there. You immediately get a housing allowance, which is an extra $1,000+ a month. You get a $90,000 reenlistment bonus. And we were in a combat zone, so it was tax-free. So the way they would do it is they'd cut you a $45,000 check on the spot, and then you'd get the rest of it in installments over the next 6 years. And they wanted to give me all of that just to reenlist for 2 more years. To make it 8 instead of 6. And I said no. That's how horrible my job was.
Oh no.
It was awful. I can tell you exactly how many hours I can stay awake before I start hallucinating. Because I've done it. It's 76, give or take. In the plant working, the only time to leave is to go to the bathroom and grab something to eat. And you're back down in the plant working. It's all because it's constantly understaffed. So everyone has to work even harder. They have to take over more watches. They have to take more maintenance on, which means they don't want to re-enlist, which makes it even harder to get more people. It's a vicious cycle. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where as soon as you see something's wrong, someone has to go fix it.
Mm-hmm. We're in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
If something happens, we can't call someone to go fix it. We fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't have a part, we make something. We MacGyver it or whatever. It's got to work. This is a warship. It has to work. And if you can't make it work, we're all in trouble.
So I'm assuming that nothing's severe has happened while you were on your...
As far as us being like attacked,
Mm-hmm.
no. Aircraft carriers in this day and age, no one is brave enough to shoot at an aircraft carrier. Because here's the thing. The carrier's never alone. There's always a submarine and a couple other boats and stuff that are always there, somewhere, very close by, as a carrier strike group. We also have a bunch of, like, fighter jets and, like, 50 cals on the boat. Like, it would take someone with some intestinal fortitude to open fire on that boat, because it's not going to end pretty.
Okay, a lot of weapons.
It is, you know, like, that's the point of the carrier being there. It's a show of force. We don't actually fire at anybody, but we could.
You could, but you don't.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you feel that we might have left anything out that you might want to mention?
I think transitioning to civilian life is a lot harder than most people understand. People that haven't been in the military, of course. You know, like, when I joined when I was 18 years old. I was very young. And the 18 to 21, 22, those years are really formative for somebody. So when I got out, I was 24, and I was different than everybody my age. Because when they were 19 in college, I was deployed for 8 months at a time, you know,
Yeah.
like going 76 hours without sleep, working in a plant, and it's like 160 degrees in the plant, in my workspace, you know. So it was a really tough adjustment coming back home. I got a job in like retail, you know, and then I tried to go to college online, and that did not work. Don't do that. It is so hard to focus on online school. So hard, at least for me, I guess.
That's fair.
But I was working retail with a bunch of people my age, and they're like complaining that they have to work for 35 hours a week. And I'm like,
You're over here like,
y'all, are you serious?
You're over here like, I haven't slept in like 2 days.
For real. Or like I have slept in 2 days, and I'm so thankful for that. I'm so grateful that I don't have to be away from home for 8 months, that I get to sleep in my own bed, that I get 8 hours of sleep whenever I want. You know, I just gotta go to bed when I'm supposed to.
That sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you already answered that for me.
Oh, there's more.
Yeah. No, you're good. So when did you enroll in the